There's so many good people in our communities who are worthy of acknowledgement, and sharing their stories encourages all of us. So if you know someone who should be getting the Jenco Award, we hope that you too will think of nominating them. So it's now my pleasure to invite our awardees forward, and then I will formally introduce them. So if you could join me up here, I would appreciate it. So while everybody's getting here, I will say, Ron shared a little bit, but I wanted also to talk about Father Martin Jenco. For the first time this year, I had a chance to read his account of being held captive for 19 months. And I was so surprised. He was kidnapped after being misidentified as somebody else. They thought he was one guy and they'd gotten another and they kept him. And the strong bonds that these men developed together, they were literally chained together, but it was a community, and that's what kept them going, gave them faith, and ultimately led to their release from captivity. So if you're looking for a book that is guaranteed to keep you up all night, I know here sleep is important. We had a lecture on that for those that weren't there, but it's a great memoir of what it was like, and does speak about Terry Anderson and the relationship there. And of course, that's the genesis of how we got here. Terry Anderson, someone living in Athens, set up this fund in honor of Father Martin Jenco, and his spirit is embodied in our awardees. So I encourage you to check that out. And it's called Bound to Forgive. I want to thank our awardees and our nominators, as I've done. Our theme for this panel is going to all be about how we connect and the power and the energy that our connections give to our work in the community. I want to start with the legacy that we honor and remember. Those of you who have been to a lot of FAO events know that we always bring this candle with us. We call it our legacy candle. And we remember those who we have lost, but through their gifts and their work and their endowments, their spirit is still with us. And we lost one of our Jenco awardees 37 days ago today, and that was Sarah Guilford. And I see some of you nodding. She was amazing. Her daughter, Susan, is here with us, and there she is. And we thank you for being here. Sarah was a champion for the arts. She just had complete belief and commitment to what she was doing. The nonprofit Paper Circle that she started in Nelsonville was cornerstone, it still is, to the arts community there. We were all at FAO privileged to know her, and we're thrilled tonight that Scout, her nominator, is here to talk on a little of her legacy. So thank you for being here. And Scout and I actually met each other in a line at a restaurant a few weeks ago, and so they said, well, Scout's gonna speak for Sarah. I'm like, I know Scout. So we had a great conversation. It's my pleasure to introduce our other awardees. I will start with Ben Neese, who is mayor of Middleport and owner and lead instructor of Batanga.
Yeah.
Batanga? Okay, it's good enough. I want to get it right. Is it?
Batanga.
Batanga.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, Batanga.
Martial Arts Center, where his training includes giving back to the community. Since 2017, he has led the annual Breakathon, raising funds, supporting the Meigs County Council on Aging's Blakeslee Center, and that's a great place to be, the local high school band programs, and heart screenings for youth. We also have with us Andy Jones of Rockbridge. She is a prolific volunteer on too many boards. I think that I can manage announcing here tonight, but they include the Hocking County Board of Health, the Logan Tree Commission, Logan and Bloom, and many others. So thank you for being with us, Andy. Lacey Rogers of Athens, at the end there, is a counselor, implicit bias trainer, social justice activist. She's dedicated to nurturing safe and inclusive communities for all people. She's the City of Athens' first diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility training coordinator. Her service includes leading Empowering Women of Ohio, various roles with United Campus Ministry, co-creator of the Women of Color in Athens group, and much, much more. And Monica Badiger of Zanesville, who is a community leader, advocate, and activist. She has worked tirelessly and selflessly to help individuals impacted by substance use disorders. Monica served as a hairdresser for 30 years, and after some personal heartache, said what she shared with me is, I took my mess and I made a message. And It's inspiring, and I'm excited you're all going to hear about it tonight. So thank you. This is our 2023 the Jenco Awardees. We should give them a round of applause. Yes, that's right. All right, so I'm going to ask some questions that I think will fit well with many of the leadership discussions we've had today. And usually it's ladies first, but I think we're going to start gentlemen and go to the mayor of Middleport. And in our conversation earlier this week, you educated me on the term karate and a little bit about what that means and how martial arts to you is a remedy for low self-confidence. And we've been talking a lot today about community leadership and what's required. And I was hoping you might bring us the perspective from martial arts.
So we want to start on the philosophy of karate. And
That's right.
How it works with community involvement. Most people, when they look at martial arts, it's something they've seen on film or something they've seen on television, and they think that it's something just kicking and punching. And it's not. It's an expression of your individualism. And the Japanese word karate, Cara means empty, te means hand. That's the modern translation. When you look at the older translation, it means formless mind. And it's just a representation of a process to freely express yourself. And in my opinion, you cannot really take a leadership role until you have the confidence to lead, because it can be very burdensome. And you cannot have confidence until you're ready to freely express yourself. And I did not start karate at the age 10 thinking that's where it would lead me, but that's where it has taken me. And yeah, let's go.
So we had a discussion this morning a little bit about the state of flow and of creativity. And then we also talked about how in community we co-create things, right? If I come in and this is Cara's plan, I'm probably not going to get very far, but if I listen with kind of an open mind and we work together, and that's kind of what I took from some of the formless mind, is that it kind of cleared you of yourself.
Yes.
To be more present.
Formlessness is an Eastern philosophy based in Buddhism, where you're not stuck in a certain ideology. You.
Can you hear?
How about that? Is that better?
Just have to-
Yeah. When I do that, I can't even hear myself talk, so that's perfect. So, formlessness is a Buddhism philosophy, which means you do not get set in in certain ideology. You're willing to change. So formlessness has a very wide meaning. It doesn't translate very well into English, but yeah, you have to be willing to adapt. I think the saying is a wise man will change his mind, but a fool never does. And that
I love that.
falls deep into formlessness. So,
A wise man will change his mind, a fool never does.
yeah.
Good. Well, we're going to come back, but we're going to let everybody answer a question first. So it's going to be my pleasure to go to my fellow Hocking County native, Andy Jones. And you've been busier than ever in retirement. And I asked her a question on work-life integration. For the fellows here, I feel you're owed a panel on that. And we will get to it. I thought Andy was going to give me tips about crockpots or schedules or ways she manages her time. And instead, she took the conversation a totally different place. And she talked about the power of connections and how this is not straight path work. And I actually picked up on your comments. I stole those from her, by the way, this morning in my welcome and my introduction. But I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about your philosophy of community building and how you've expressed it.
So I think what I expressed to you was that there is no straight path to anything. And honestly, I retired about 10 years ago. Where I am right now, I wouldn't have believed it 10 years ago that I'm doing the things that I'm doing now. I didn't have the vision for it. And the way I kind of see it is life kind of takes you this way, and then that way, and then that way, and then that way, and then kind of swings back. And that building gives us experiences that we never thought we never even imagined. And all those experiences when you all come together around your tables, whether it's a community organization, networking, it's all of those different experiences that make what you're doing possible and achieving the best possible outcome. And it's, if when I was 20 years old, I went a straight, direct path, I would never have experienced what it is I have now, which I'd much rather go squiggly than straight.
That's so beautiful, and I think it's so helpful for all of us. I know many of the fellows are beginning new things, right? And we don't know where it will go, and that's very reassuring. I kind of would like, if we could, to turn to Lacey, because I know in her conversations we talked a little bit about how you never even know how these things in your background might be so helpful to your work, and none of it is lost. It all adds to that. I know, Lacey, you're working in one of the most difficult arenas that anybody can be working in today, and it's hard. And the language is hard, the feelings are hard. And you said, well, I've got a background in counseling and I have a background as a photographer, and I use that all the time. I thought that was really interesting. So could you share a little bit, about some of the strengths that you draw on that might help others here as they pursue things that are difficult?
Sure. You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Just have to-
I think basically what I was just trying to say from that is I was someone who was a little bit all over the place when it came to my college career, but I've always found a way to bring all of those things back into the forefront in my work, and specifically with counseling. One of the most important things of that is listening. Really simple, but listening, well, not that simple, because some people aren't great at it, but that's really important, particularly in a community, to be able to listen to what the main needs of the community are, to involve the community in the process, and a lot of different ways to sort of connect over that is over shared interests. And one of those that I think is sort of something that's brought me together for a lot of people is just identity. So being able to create safe spaces based on identities, whether it's with the youth that I work with or through the Women of Color group that you mentioned, just noting that there are different needs amongst the community members, and being able to be part of those communities and bring people in based off of what they say they need is super important.
Mm-hmm. Part of those safe spaces is respect, I'm assuming. Can you talk a little bit more about the values that make that space safe? I'm sorry, I know we didn't. I said, everybody, here's your starter question, and now I'm off script. I apologize.
Sure. I think just showing, being somebody who is very representative and being able to show that you actually are practicing what you preach and you care about these things, being somebody that people recognize. One of the great things about being able to work with youth, so right now I'm a facilitator for an anti-racism class, as well as do some bystander trainings at the Athens Middle School. And to be able to see the journey of some of those kids so far, I've been able to see a class go from being freshmen to seniors, and just to even have them walk into an event and say, oh my gosh, Lacey's here. They know me, and then at this point, if I see them out in the community, just to be able to know that if I have something happen, for instance, I had a young person who came out to me, for instance, and I think being able to see that representation in the community, that made me a safe space for them. So.
One of the books that all the fellows have right now is How to Know Someone, the David Brooks book that really talks about how we listen and how we illuminate the good. So thank you. Maybe we'll just pass it to Monica. Is that okay? I think that we build further on this theme because I want to share a little bit of your story. And that is you've built a coalition, and you've built one of the best coalitions in terms of strength and staying power in the southeastern Ohio area, and that's required building safe spaces, trusting relationships. Can you share a little bit about what you've been working on?
So I am the mother of a child who struggles with substance use disorder, and in the beginning had to decide if I was going to let that make me bitter or better, and I decided to take my mess and make it a message. So we knew in our community that we did need more education, prevention, and awareness. So I started Drug Free Muskingum. In doing that, there were things that I knew that we had to have, and that was having both sides of the table. People with lived experience was very important to me. People who were in recovery themselves, and myself, I consider myself in recovery from the impacts of what substance use has done to my family. So I built partnerships with all of the mental health and recovery facilities in Zanesville, Muskingum County, and I built those by learning through my recovery. I always say, mean what you say and say what you mean, and that foundation there has allowed me to go into agencies and to basically mean what I say and say what I mean. Mm-hmm. So they trust me. My coalition, my fellow coalition members, they trust me, very transparent. The one thing that I do want to mention that I had to do was go to my child. We had to decide in the beginning, were we going to recover out loud? This is our business, this is our life, this is a lot. Some people still to this day have a lot of stigma attached to substance use disorder and mental health. And we decided as a family that yes, we were going to recover out loud. Fentanyl, unfortunately, is killing way too many people. So my son is 100% on board with everything I do. Not that we haven't had challenges, but that, you know, he's on board. The whole entire recovery community is on board. So I think relationship building and partnership, you know, has been a lot of my successes. I now work in public health. Never dreamt that. You talk about paths. Never in a million years. I was a hairdresser 30 years. Loved what I did. Still love it, I think. I mean, I don't do hair anymore, but I would still be doing it if I wasn't approached by the health commissioner and asked if I didn't want to do this, and I wanted to do it. So I'm a family advocate now, and I love my job every day. So
Thank you. We just never know how things will turn and where they'll go. And maybe just to give everybody a chance, Scout, could we turn to you? You know, we all stand on really strong shoulders, and that's especially true with the work that you have done with Sarah Guilford. And I know you guys were a team. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, speaking to her legacy, could you maybe feed off some of what we're talking about and the story you see of her life and service?
Well, one of the things I wanted to mention is that during lockdown, you know, it was a really scary time for us. We're a small organization, and you know, people didn't know. We didn't know what the outcome was going to be, you know, and because that not knowing was frightening. And I felt at times kind of I was underwater or treading water. And I had a fully functioning paper studio to go to every day for 3 years. So it was a real gift for me. And the art and craft of hand paper making has saved my life. And I had, you know, like you said, the shoulders of Sarah to stand on, but I had a platform. So it was in some ways really easy for me to speak from that because she'd already established that. And I saw what she had done. I mean, I've only been in that area for this is my 5th year. But there was numerous times people would show up, not during lockdown, but before and after, that Sarah had mentored. And I'll be like, oh, there's another one. They just were like all over the place. And there's still, just this week, I had somebody come in that was her very first mentee or a person that learned how to make paper when Sarah still had her studio at her house. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And so we had a really, really interesting conversation. And I don't know, I just felt really honored to be in her presence and to be connected with her because she was critical about artwork or about the quality of things, but never about people. She just was grace under fire. And so I felt like it was really a gift for me to be there and still be there. So thank you for having me.
I think we all know that feeling. People like that just leave a mark on us. That's for the
Yeah.
good, right? And
Exactly.
She was one of those.
Yeah, she did.
Well, we're here with young leaders. They're taking on ambitious projects in their communities. Would you guys give them some of your best advice?
Well, I'd like to say something,
start?
and I'll
Yeah.
pass the mic, is that I was a school teacher for 25 years, and I happened to be seated at a table with 2 school teachers from the area, and we used to have to say, do bell work, it's what they called it. So you had to put something on the board, and I always did different things every day, and one of them was, if you fall down 7 times, get up 8. So, you know, that's really been true. It is true. Just keep on going on,
And Sarah's daughter, Susan, as we mentioned, is here earlier, and in conversation with her, what she mentioned about Sarah was just that. She just kept on going.
That's
And
right.
it was not easy. We look back on these things sometimes
Right.
and forget how hard it was.
Exactly.
You weren't sure how you're going to keep it open from month to month, right?
Right.
But you got back up.
Yeah.
And it requires a certain level of faith, which maybe is really the tie-in to Father Jenco. You know,
Right.
it was this faith and community that sustained
Yeah.
these men.
Yeah,
and
sometimes you
led
don't
to
know
this
the
fund.
strength that you have until you're under fire. You know, so.
That's great.
Got to think about this.
Mayor.
Advice?
Just a couple nuggets on leadership, things you think we should know, community service.
I just always got involved with these things because it was fun. It just was something fun to do. I'm very different. I'm a very different person. I have very different goals from average people, and it just was always a fascinating, riveting idea to take something and build it, and take something and run with it. So you're going to have a blast doing it. I can tell you that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, that's probably the best. Just have fun with it, I guess.
Yeah,
Are you ready?
Yeah.
here it comes.
Yes, so my first venture into my very own volunteering, as opposed to a kid when, you know, your parents say, by the way, we're going to do this, was in outdoor recreation activities, bicycling, backpacking, canoeing, all, you know, wonderful outdoor rock climbing, rappelling. The most important thing that a leader in those activities does is follow. You're not the person out front really leading. You let people know the way they're supposed to be going, down the trail, stay on the trail, but you're actually behind watching them. And that really holds true in, I think, any leadership position, is that you let people do what they need to do and kind of stand behind, support them, and when they start to go too far off the trail, guide them back in. But build on their strengths. You as the leader, the strongest thing you can do is be behind and be supportive.
Yeah, I was hearing that country song, you know, sometimes you walk, sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. I was going to talk about the signs of hope, but do you want to go first?
No,
Well, I was just going to, some of the things that we're beginning to discuss among the fellows is the science of hope. You know, we often think hope is wishful thinking, like I hope that dinner goes well, or I hope this panel goes well. But hope is actually something that can be measured. It's something that can be increased. And increasing hope in our lives increases well-being and even our physical health. And it boils down pretty scientifically to 3 elements. And I'm hearing you guys describe them. You got to have a goal, a vision, something you're pursuing. You have to have a sense of agency, a sense of I have the mental energy to do this, and I have the cheerleaders supporting me, which is what made me think of this when you said this, Andy. And then I've got to understand my path. I've got to understand I've got to create a safe space. I've got to build these relationships. And if you have those 3 elements in place, you have a sense of rising hope. And that's what brings health and well-being. And so you're right. I think and the call to all of us is to be that cheerleader for the person out there working. Monica, sorry.
Pretty basic, always be teachable. I think that one of my favorite things, and then the other thing is I never ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't want to do. I don't wait for the person behind me to do something. I'll do it, and if they do it the next time, that's great. I just don't expect everybody to do what I wouldn't want to do, so I think that's probably the best advice that I have.
Speaking to hope, as you mentioned, I work, a lot with kids, and they really give me a lot of hope. But I think a lot of times they don't get the platforms to be able to share the things that they have on their minds, but they have a lot to say. And so being able to give them opportunities to discuss really all issues that are happening in the world is is a really great and meaningful experience for me. So I think one of the things that I sort of try to live by is be the person you needed when you were younger. So I think that's why I find so much joy in and so much hope in working with youth.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to say is what she's, tag off of, they need a voice. People want to be listened to. And I think as leaders, it's important for us to be out front, and to, have that goal and keep that in mind. But it is so crucial to listen to what the community wants or the people want or your committee wants. Or, yeah, it's sometimes hard to do because you're determined about, what you're going to do. So I think what Bennett said earlier about, being able to change your mind, being flexible is really important.
Wisdom.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what Andy said about it's not straight path work. So much of life is we go through kindergarten and we progress to 12th grade. We begin in the job and we become boss. But work in a community moves forward through our connections, our relationships, right? It's just not, it's not straight. And so it's listening, right? And creating it together.
So important. Yeah.
You guys have anything you want to respond to among yourselves? Mayor? You probably do a lot of listening in your job.
Well, if you ever have to come on one of these panels, please drink a lot of water because you might get two Charlie horses in the middle of this thing. I've been needing to stand for about 10 minutes, but I've struggled through. I got it. We did a lot of working out today, and my legs are shot, so that's why I've been chugging. I'm not nervous. I just need water in my legs. That's the problem. Just listening, I should have gone last because you guys kind of inspired me to say what I needed to say, right? Taking the different paths. But I think a leader cannot be afraid to say what needs to be said. Because somebody's waiting to have it be said so others can hear it. And I've learned that a lot in the 4 months I've been mayor. Sometimes you just have to say it, especially when you're trying to break barriers and boundaries that exist in Appalachia. You just have to say it.
You mean acknowledge it?
Acknowledge it, and then if you're going to lead, give something for people to get behind. And it's there. It's a silence that just needs to be expressed. And we have a few of the things going on in Middleport right now on a greater level.
Part of what I've heard some leaders say is you've got to name the prize. What is it we're working towards, right? And that leaders frame the future. Let me help people imagine what can happen if we do this thing together. And I think that's maybe part of what you're saying. Yeah. Other advice or things that have worked for you?
Don't be afraid to do it alone if no one else agrees to do it with you.
Sounds like there's a story behind that.
There's a lot of stories.
More than one, okay.
I think you have to make sure that you believe in your purpose too, and find like-minded people. My cause is it's a tough one. So finding people that believe in what I'm doing sometimes is tough. A lot of adversity. So, but I stand tall and stand firm in my beliefs. So.
Some panels, I feel like people are just like fighting for the mic. You guys are all so polite. You're good at sharing leadership and co-creating. This has been a wonderful conversation. I take away from it, again, this is not straight path work. It moves through connections. We take our mess, we make it into a message. And it requires this steadfast belief, this faith. And I just couldn't think of a better way, quite honestly, to conclude a panel honoring the legacy of Father Martin Jenco, because it was the faith that in the end we will be released from captivity, and those connections that led to today and this award. So any final closing thoughts from any of you? No?
Okay.
Okay.
I think sometimes you're your worst critic, and particularly as an artist, a visual artist myself, I felt that often over my career. And I think you sometimes have to just not listen to that, and you just have to continue with what your goal is. And just keep doing the work, and don't give up on it, and that's again about, falling down and, getting back up. But I think for me, the critic has sometimes stopped me from going forward and kept me from doing things that I should have done before, and now I'm not, it's not gone away because it's still there, but I often remember, just don't listen to that, just keep going. And everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, I love that poem about the man in the arena, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's not what the critic thinks,
Right.
right? Well, thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation. Our awardees are going to remain here. We're actually going to give you some certificates and do photos in a little bit with your nominators. And you're welcome to continue and linger and spend time together. For the fellows, you've had long drives and long days, but this has meant a lot. And we're so grateful for the time that you're putting into this fellowship, for the plans, for the work, and are just really looking forward to what the rest of the year will bring.